Alrighty, everybody, good morning. This is Mr. G here with the end of World War One. I hope you all had a great weekend, and I hope you're all excited for spring break. This should be a shorter lecture. Hopefully, we can get through the material as quickly as possible. So last week, we talked about the Russian Revolution. The week before that, we talked about World War One. And now what we're going to do is we're going to wrap the whole thing up right as we're going into spring break. So, with the end of World War One, the war starts on July 28th, 1914, and ends on November 11th, 1918. Okay, it's about 4 years. Almost 8 million are dead. Russia loses the most people with about 1.7 million, and almost 22 million are wounded. Okay, and what we're going to see in a couple minutes is that the map of Europe is going to change substantially from what it was. Okay, there's going to be a lot more new nations, new places of power, all that kind of jazz. By the end of World War One, Germany says, hey, we need to have a revolution. The Kaiser abdicates the throne, the government collapses, and it is taken over by this guy named Friedrich Ebert, or Frederick Ebert, however you want to pronounce it in German. So Germany has a revolution. Okay, it's not violent or anything. We'll talk about that more down the line. They put in place a weak government. But on November 11th, 1918, okay, the revolution happens right before this, the armistice is signed. So World War One ends with the armistice. Okay, make sure you write that down, star it, highlight it, because everybody thinks that the Treaty of Versailles is what ended World War One. No, it was the armistice. Okay? An armistice is a truce or agreement to end fighting, and it ends the war. So, all these countries are going to come into negotiations after the armistice is signed and ends the war. They're going to come into negotiations to try to get land back. Different countries are going to want various things. So France wants to regain Alsace-Lorraine and the coal region, which is the Saar Basin. Okay, they want to create a demilitarized zone called the Rhineland as a buffer to Germany. Okay, so they said, hey, Germany was too close last time. Okay, we need like a demilitarized zone so we can know if they're going to attack us again. Okay, it's too dangerous. We need like a wall. Okay, but instead of a wall, they make a country. Okay, they want to cripple Germany's military for the foreseeable future. They want to gain German and Turkish colonies in Africa and the Mideast. Great Britain, on the other hand, wants to gain German and Turkish colonies in Africa and the Middle East. So they're both trying to grab the colonies, right? Italy says, hey, we want land from Austria-Hungary. Russia wants control of the Dardanelles and the Bosporus Straits, and more land that they want. Austria-Hungary, remember, they're collapsing. They just want to survive. Germany, they want to gain a part of France. They want to maintain their borders. Okay, so they say, hey, we want to make sure that, you're not going to take a bunch of land from Germany. That wouldn't be fair. Okay, and they call the Balkans the sphere of influence. Okay, they say, hey, the Balkans are a kind of dangerous place right now. We need to make sure that Germany is well defended against them. Okay, and they also want to take over French and British colonies in Africa. Okay, now you're probably thinking, well, why do they want to do this? Well, first of all, it's because of money. Second of all, these were the goals that they had at the beginning of the war and after the war. Okay, obviously they're not going to get most of this stuff, but this is what they were trying to get. And finally, the United States just wants to end the war so they can carry on and apply Wilson's 14 points to have a global policy. This is the map of Europe prior to the end of the war. Okay, you can see the German Empire, Austro-Hungarian monarchy / empire, Italy, France, Spain, United Kingdom, Russian Empire, Ottoman Empire. It goes from this, and because of the Treaty of Versailles, goes to this. Okay, Austria and Hungary, their territories are cut down, replaced with Yugoslavia. Okay, all Albania, not Bulgaria, all of these different countries. The Ottoman Empire, which is down here by Turkey. Okay, it's used to be Turkey, gets replaced. Okay, the mandate system, highlight star circle. The mandate system says that France and Great Britain get to take up a lot of the lands in Africa and in the Middle East. So Turkey gets to maintain its independence, but areas like modern-day Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, they all become British and French colonies. Okay, but notice that France and Great Britain and Spain really don't lose any land. Okay, and we can see that there's a bit of a buffer zone there between Germany and France. We could see from this chart that the deaths were just crazy. This is a nice way to lay it out. We can see Russia and Germany lost the most. Okay. The Treaty of Versailles was signed in June 1919 at the Palace of Versailles, and a little outside of Paris, France. I've never been there, but I've been to Paris, and they never stop talking about Versailles. Okay, it's a massive place. So, Clemenceau, okay, he's the leader of France. Okay, he's the prime minister. Highlight his name. He's important. He says we need a buffer zone between Germany. Okay, he says we want revenge. We want to make Germany suffer for what they did. Okay, they caused the war. And we want reparations. Okay, you tore up most of the northern part of France. We want money to help fix that. Okay, and above all, he wants to make sure that Germany cannot invade France in the future. Okay, you're going to pay for what you did, and we're going to take you down. David Lloyd George from Britain, he says, hey, we want to punish the Germans too. Okay, we're very anti-German, but most of all, we want to protect from communism. We just saw what happened in the Russian Revolution. Communism must be stopped. It's a threat to all of us. And that's our boy Woodrow Wilson. Okay, he wanted 14 different things. Okay, they called us his 14 points. He wanted the treaty to be based on this. He believed that Germany should be punished, but not as severely as France and Britain wanted. He wanted a just settlement that would not leave Germany feeling resentful. Very, very important. Wilson also wanted to set up an international organization called the League of Nations. Okay, and the American public did not support him, unfortunately. Okay, they would be wrong, so they should have supported him, but they didn't, and because of that, the Treaty of Versailles was signed. The USA became more isolationist. Okay, and it would really be what led to the next World War. The Treaty of Versailles says the German army must be reduced to 100,000 men, no tanks, okay, no air force. We're going to have this area called the Rhineland, and it's going to be demilitarized. The Allies are going to occupy the west bank of the Rhine for 15 years to make sure you don't do anything. And the German Navy is not allowed to have any submarines or large battleships. So they're crippling the German military. Okay, so we can see Alsace-Lorraine. Okay, we can see the Rhineland. Right. We can see the rich farmland in Poland that was given to Poland. Okay, many of these different countries are, just forming. They're taking land, and they're using the land to the best of their ability. The War Guilt Clause is the most important piece that comes from the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, it says that Germany is responsible for starting the war, and they're going to be punished. That's all it says. They also want reparations. Okay, they say, Germany, you're the only one who's left. Austria-Hungary has collapsed. The Ottoman Empire has collapsed. Okay, you're the only ones who are left. So we're going to charge you 132 billion gold marks to pay in reparations to France, Britain, the United States, and all the other countries. The Germans called it a Diktat, which means a dictated peace. Okay, they weren't even invited to the conference at Versailles. Okay, they didn't sign it. It was not based on the 14 points, so the Germans were treated horribly. They believed that the War Guilt Clause was unjustified and that the French and British had just as much to start the war. And the loss of territory and population angered most Germans who believed that the losses were too severe. So they said, hey, we lost a lot of people. How could we be responsible for everything? Why can't anybody else take a hit? Okay? And they knew the German economy would be crippled. So the League of Nations is also created from the Treaty of Versailles, but it's very weak. The United States does not join it. Okay? Germany eventually joins. The Treaty of Locarno basically strengthens the borders of France and Belgium against Germany. And members, this is the important part, members refuse to use force against aggression. Okay? They don't want another war. They want to keep the peace. And so, a couple years after the Treaty of Versailles is signed, Reparations become due, but Germany can't pay. It's just too much money. Their economy's, falling apart. Their government is still relatively new and unpopular and weak. So the United States says, hey, we want to protect the other countries. We want to make sure that we don't go to war again. So we're going to put into place the Dawes Plan. This is just saying that Germany will pay the U.S. is going to provide loans to Germany. Okay, Germany would then use those loans to pay Britain, France, and the other countries, and then Britain, France, and the other countries would then repay the U.S. Okay, so it's basically the U.S. giving Germany the money to pay off the loans for the other countries to pay off their loans to the U.S., just to kind of settle things. Okay, but then there's a global Great Depression that breaks out. I know this is just one bad thing after another, but these are the turbulent times they were living in. The U.S. stock market crashes. Okay, there's a global decline in stocks and investment. Banks around the world collapse. And because of overproduction during the war, there are lower prices. And this is the biggest contribution to the start of the global or Great Depression. Okay, and the responses to this Great Depression were higher tariffs, the encouragement of production by lowering wages, and communism. People start saying, yes, communism is a great safety net. And we're just going to go through a couple countries before we wrap up. So Germany, after the war and the Depression, they're very weak. The Weimar Republic replaces the Kaiser government, but is quickly falling apart and is about to collapse on its own. They have serious economic problems. Okay, there's mass inflation. They can't pay back the reparations. Okay, and the money loses the value to the point where people were literally burning their money. They were using the money as fuel because the money was worthless. There were 4.38 million Germans unemployed, and Germany's just a hot mess after the war, okay? France, on the other hand, is left as the strongest power on the continent. However, because of the global depression, they still get hit pretty bad economically. Many areas in France in the north are still in ruins from the war. They're still destroyed. It's extremely expensive to fix all of that. And because the government was kind of falling apart after this point because they couldn't pay and the economic turmoil was so bad, this organization called the Popular Front government comes forth. So this isn't really, I shouldn't have said organization, more like a party, okay? These are leftist, socialist, communist, and other radical politicians who come and say, hey, we need to help recreate France. We need to help give jobs. We need to help, the people. So they put into place their own New Deal. You'll learn about the New Deal in US 2, but this is their version of the New Deal. However, it fails to address economic concerns. Britain loses many markets abroad. The Labour Party, who is kind of like the extreme left Democrats, okay, so I shouldn't say extreme left Democrats, but they're the Democrats, but way more to the left, like the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez kind of people. Those are the ideologies in the Labour Party. Okay, but the Labour Party is certainly not what it is today. Okay, so the Conservatives take over. They do fix the economy, okay, even in the face of the Depression. However, they use protective tariffs, which we know do not work, and other countries become unstable. And however, they ignore the influential economist Keynes. So Keynesian economics become very important. He says, look, governments have to intervene. We can't have laissez-faire governments. We can't have economies that are just, unregulated. That's how we got into this mess. And he is the first to theorize supply and demand. Very important man, very important economist. Shapes what modern capitalism today. He's, one of the reasons why our government does what it does today with public education, in terms of funding, dealing with the economy, all that kind of stuff, regulations. And then finally, the United States, after the war, during the Depression, we get hit the hardest. Actually, no, Germany gets hit the hardest. We get hit the second hardest. Unemployment hits 12 million. The Republicans who are in power do nothing. They say, hey, people were already poor before the Great Depression. Us helping them out's not going to do anything. Okay, farmers, here's a famous quote from the president. Farmers were not rich before the Depression, and I don't see how we're ever going to help them. Okay, I botched the quote, but it's fine. So the Republicans do nothing. People hate them. So they elect the Democrats into power. They say, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, please take the presidency, and he does. He implements the New Deal. which creates a welfare system, prevents social revolution in the US, meaning whereas all these other countries were kind of falling apart politically and governmentally, the United States is able to kind of stay afloat. FDR is one of the greatest presidents in American history. You cannot argue that. You can argue if he's a good person or bad person. However, you cannot argue the effectiveness of FDR in keeping America together. Okay, the only issue is the New Deal doesn't really recover the U.S. economy like they thought it would. Okay, so that is your PowerPoint on the world after World War I into the Depression. I hope you all have a great spring break. When we come back, we'll start talking about dictators. Okay, Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, all of those guys. Make sure you've taken notes and you submit them, and also make sure you create your 2 to 3 comments or questions for tomorrow's live chat. Okay, I am checking them. I want to make sure that you guys are there and contributing. Have a great day.